All right, we're going to continue with reading chapter 13, An Unexpected Meeting. Wake up, Diggory, wake up, Fledge, came the voice of Polly. It has turned into a toffee tree, and it's the loveliest thing. The low, early morning sunshine was streaming through the wood, and the grass was gray with dew, and the cobwebs were like silver. Just beside them was a little dark-wooded tree, about the size of an apple tree. The leaves were whitish and rather papery, like the herb called honesty, and it was loaded with little brown fruits that looked kind of like dates. Hooray, said Diggory, but I'm going to have a dip first. He rushed through a flowering thicket or two down to the river's edge. Have you ever bathed in a mountain river that is running in shallow cataracts over red and blue and yellow stones with the sun on it? It was as good as the sea, in some ways almost better. Of course he had to dress again without drying, but it was well worth it. When he came back, Polly went down and had her bath. At least she said that's what she was doing, but we do know that she was not much of a swimmer, and perhaps it's best not to ask too many questions. Fledge visited the river too, but he only stood in midstream, stooping down for a long drink of water, then shaking his mane and neighing several times. Polly and Diggory got to work on the toffee tree. The fruit was delicious, not exactly like toffee, softer for one thing, and juicy, but like fruit that kind of reminded one of toffee. Fledge also made an excellent breakfast. He tried one of the toffee fruits and liked it, but he said he felt more like grass at that hour in the morning. With some difficulty, the children got on his back, and the second journey began. It was even better than yesterday, partly because everybody was feeling so fresh, and partly because the newly risen sun was at their backs, and of course, everything looks nicer when the light's behind you. It was a wonderful ride. The big snowy mountains rose above them in every direction. The valleys far beneath them were so green, and all the streams which tumbled down from the glaciers into the main river were so blue that it was like flying over a gigantic piece of jewelry. They would have liked this part of the adventure to go on longer than it did, but quite soon they were all sniffing in the air, saying, "What is that? Do you smell something? Where is it coming from?" For a heavenly smell, warm and golden, as if from the most delicious fruits and flowers of the world, was coming up from them somewhere ahead. "It's coming from that valley with the lake in it." "Ah, so it is," said Diggory. "And look, there's a green hill at the far end of the lake, and look how blue the water is." "It must be the place," said all three. Fledge came lower and lower in wide circles. The icy peaks rose up higher and higher above. The air came up warmer and sweeter every moment, so sweet that it almost brought the tears into your eyes. Fledge was now gliding with his great rings, spread out motionless on each side, with his hoofs pawing for the ground. The steep green hill was rushing toward them. A moment later he alighted on its slope, a little awkwardly. The children rolled off and fell without hurting themselves on warm, fine grass and stood up panting a little bit. They were about 3/4 of the way up the hill and set out at once to climb the top. I don't think Fledge would have managed without his wings to balance him and to give help to flutter now and then. All around the very top of the hill ran a high wall of green turf. Inside the wall were trees. Their branches hung out over the walls, and their leaves showed not only green but also blue and silver when the wind stirred them. When the travelers reached the top, they nearly walked all the way around it outside the green wall before they found the gates, high gates of gold, fast shut, facing east. Up until now, I think Fledge and Polly had the idea that they would go in with Diggory, but they thought no longer so. You never saw a place that was obviously so private. You could see it at a glance that it belonged to somebody else. Only a fool would dream of going in unless he had been sent there on very special business. Diggory himself understood at once that the others wouldn't and could not come with him. He went forward to the gates alone. We had come up close to them. He saw the words written on gold and silver letters, something like this: "Come in by the gold gates or not at all. Take my fruit for others or for bear. For those who steal or those who climb my wall shall find their heart's desire and find despair." "Take my fruit for others," Diggory said to him. "Well, that's what I'm going to do. It means I must not eat any myself, I suppose. I don't know what all that jaw is and about the last line. Come in by gold gates. Well, who'd want to climb a wall if he could get in by a gate? But how do the gates open?" He laid his hand on them, and instantly they swung apart, opening inward, turning their hinges without the least bit of noise. Now that he could see into the place, it looked more private than ever. He went in very solemnly, looking about him. Everything was very quiet inside. Even the fountain, which rose near the middle of the garden, made only the faintest sound. The lovely smell was all around him. It was a happy place, but very serious. He knew which was the right tree at once, partly because it stood in the very center, and partly because of the great silver apples with which it was loaded shone and cast a light of their own on the shadowy places the sunlight did not reach. He walked straight across, picked an apple, put it in the breast pocket of his Norfolk jacket, but he could not help looking at it and smelling it before he put it away. It would have been better if he had not. A terrible thirst and hunger came over him, looking longingly to taste the fruit. He put it into his pocket, but there were plenty of others. Could it be wrong to taste one? After all, he thought, the notice on the gate might not have been exactly in order. It might have been a piece of advice, and who cares about advice? Or even if there was an order, what if he disobeyed it by eating an apple? He had already obeyed the part about taking it for others. All right, let's stop there.